One of the things that I've learned over the years too is that I think one of the most difficult times is 18 to 28.
How do I break out of this persona?
The generation feels these stickers on them, and they keep fighting how to rip the stickers off when in fact the stickers aren't there.
I used to reach hundreds of thousands of people and it wasn't enough. And now it's if it's just one person, it's so fulfilling. Welcome back to Ease. Every doctor's visit happens inside of a system that most of us don't even think about. But today's guest devoted his life to shaping that part of healthcare. Dave Henderson, former CEO of Silker Henderson Properties, spent decades developing, operating, and reinventing the medical facilities that make modern healthcare possible. Under his leadership, the company became known for creating spaces that allow physicians to practice more effectively and patients to truly feel cared for. Dave is also a thoughtful, heart-first leader who understands how business, family, and legacy intersect. His perspective comes from years of building not just properties, but relationships, teams, and communities around them. This is a conversation worth tuning into, and we hope you guys enjoy it as much as we did. Without further ado, Dave Henderson. Well, hi, Dave. We're so happy to have you here today. Welcome to our show.
Thanks for the invite. It's nice to be here.
Maybe it would be great to start by giving our audience some context as to how we've crossed paths and how we've all connected.
There's this young man in my life who I was at our country club, and he was telling me about his sister and a friend and a podcast they were putting together. And we were having these conversations about just life in general. And he said one day at time, he said, you'd be great. I should introduce you to them. And he sometimes wondered, what does somebody who's 74 offer to somebody in their 20s?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes you think you're a little bit older. But anyway, with all that said, he said, I'm going to put you in touch with them. Well, you guys are the ones that he was talking about. And it's been so much fun, the journey of perspectives, because there's, just about 50 years that separate us. And it's been the most fun getting to know you and getting to understand what you're trying to do. And so it's nice to be a part of that.
I feel like you saying what can a 74-year-old teach 20-year-olds? I feel like so much. I think there's so much to learn from all different types of people, but especially people who have experienced life and have stories to tell.
Part of the reason why I wondered about that was it's interesting when you're going through the seasons. So I've been through my 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, and you find that there's not a lot of people when you're in your 20s and 30s who you can really talk to, even in your teens. You go back to your teens as simple as, what college should I go to? It's a big deal, a lot of pressure, leaving your friends for the first time if you've gone K through 12 with them and so forth. Moms and dads can tell, but sometimes they're not the best listeners. And so what ends up happening then is that son or daughter gets a little stuck because they don't then know who to go to. How many senior adults in their 50s and 60s and 70s do you know you can go to and just say, can we just talk?
Yeah.
Can you just hear what I'm experiencing? Can you hear what I'm feeling? And so it gets tricky because life is filled with complexities. And I've often said, over my experience, who are the people that have touched my life around the personal side, or around decision making and so forth? And most importantly, how well did they listen to me?
Yes, exactly. I feel like that's what I loved so much about our calls prior to being here in person today. You sharing your perspective and your knowledge and your wisdom without imposing anything. Sometimes when young people are talking to people that are older than them, they kind of shy away from it because they're I don't want to be scolded. I don't want to be told what to do.
They're trying to be vulnerable. And at the same time, they feel rejected by the comments coming back. I coached I coached a lot of baseball when the kids were growing up. And I had a lot of books on coaching psychology because I always wanted to know not the technical part of coaching baseball, but the psychological part of it. And what struck me about it was in one of the books I read, they talked about interviewing middle schoolers and high schoolers. And they said, why did you play the sport and why did you stop playing? And the comment was they wanted to play the sport that they liked to be with their friends. And they stopped playing that sport because of pressure from parents and coaches.
Ooh,
And it has continued. I thought we would always get through that. I thought that would be a season and then and yet it's still as rampant today as it was 50 years ago. Why I think it is hard to talk at times to parents is because a young adult doesn't want to disappoint. And an example of that as they get older is they don't get into a school, they don't get into a college, or they don't get a job, or they break up with a boyfriend. And mom goes, oh, I so liked him, or I so liked her. I mean, you get into all these things and people don't realize that over an accumulative period of time, our parents are vulnerable to really hear their children so the children can be vulnerable to engage them. And I don't have a good answer for that. I'm just aware of it because of what I've learned. I mean, fortunately, I had engaging parents, but I've had enough conversations where people struggle with engaging parents. And it's hard because then they only have their friends to talk to. And their friends don't necessarily have the best skills to help them figure out how to talk to parents.
Just in general, when young people go to like an older like guide, it's to get advice on their lives because they don't know what they're doing. And so they'll go to their friends, but then their friends are also just like also trying to figure it out and also young. I really love the way that you deliver the wisdom because like we were saying, you don't preach, you gently guide people to these conclusions by asking questions. And I'm like such a fan of questions, like just asking questions. That's why I like a little controversial, but I like Chat GPT. I like AI. I like it because it like
Speak your truth.
yeah, it like ignites you. It like encourages you to ask questions.
Yeah, and I'll just add to it. I think one of the things another lesson learned was that I really struggled at times where people would say, well, best practice is this. And I think that best practice offers a framework, but it doesn't mean that's the best thing for you. And so what you get to do is you get to hear wisdom of like, here's what some other people have experienced, but not, well, here's what I would suggest. And they kind of come forward like this. And that's where I made the comment earlier that it's nice to have soft landings with people where, hey, thanks for that perspective. But it's not like you take it as the action item. I think people have to figure out when they get a perspective, how does it fit for where they are? Because nobody knows each other quite the way you do. But if you know and have trusted advisors / friends, whatever term you want to use, those conversations can reveal something about your skill set that you go, I never thought about it that way. The point is, it's a little bit like a slinky. So life is a little bit like a slinky. You got people in their 20s and people in their 70s. And if you're going like this constantly, it works. But when you get kinked, it doesn't work. You throw it away.
Yeah.
And if you can get in those kind of relationships, those are the most valuable because they usually lead to the best outcomes too.
What encouraged you or inspired you or made you curious about having a conversation with us?
I think it's still developing. Doing this, I think I shared with you earlier, I was like sweaty palms. And I'm sitting there going, wait a second. I've had a 50-year career. What am I doing on a podcast with these 20-year-olds? And I say that with love and affection. What can I learn? And there's somebody that I shared with you before who's 19 who had reached out and said, can I continue to talk to you? And we've had those conversations. And so I think that it was that sense of maybe coupled with the lessons learned, that there's something there. And I thought to myself, I have no interest in anything except being a resource. And so again, it's back to some of the things we continually talk about. I didn't know where I've said that in life, you have these options around door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. you don't know what door number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 look like. Well, if I started doing these lessons learned that started back in, I think it was 2010, 2009 time period, if you said, oh, and by the way, too, what's this going to lead to? And I go, well, I'm just sitting at my desk making some notes to myself. No, you're going to have a podcast in 2025. I would have said, no way am I doing that. And if people can give that opportunity to explore, that's really why I'm here, because it's part of some things that have been revealed to me that I can either walk through door number 5, which is this, or not, and just say, thank you very much. I have other things I'm doing. So I was intrigued by it, and I've not been disappointed. One of the things that I've learned over the years too is that I think one of the most difficult times is 18 to 28. Really? Because from kindergarten to high school, it's pretty well planned out. You know where you're going. You have 3 months off for the summer, then you're back again. But then come, what is it, your October of your junior year, you have to start deciding what colleges you're going to visit. Are you accepted, not accepted? Find out from friends, were they accepted, rejected, and so forth.
That was so stressful.
Yeah, it's
Such a
stressful.
time.
And now, so you guys are in your 20s. How do you coach people in that to be not so stressful? Because they're missing a really cool time of their life. And then you get into your 20s, you've been accepted, let's say. Now the next question is, well, what are you going to be? And then after that, you decide that, well, did you get a job? And then, are you making any money, or are you still living at home? Are you dating? Do you find somebody? Somebody's engaged. You're not engaged. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. But after 28, it kind of repeats itself a little bit. But that 18 to 28, I think, is one of the most vulnerable times. I'm impressed with what you're trying to do. And I thought, I wonder if I can be a part to help. And that's really what it comes down to.
I really love what you said about how when you're starting something, you're looking at it like this and you're not very aware of the bigger picture or like what's gonna come down the line. Like if you would have told me 6 years ago that I have a podcast and I'd be like super passionate about it, I would have been like, what? Like I just would not have believed you. And I'm curious, I guess, when you first started, did you know that this was what you wanted to do?
I think I knew it at a baseline. I did not know where my skill sets would go. Where I did not know what it would become is I didn't know the leadership skills that I had. So I had building blocks, of what my life would become, but they came in pieces of advancement. They didn't come like tomorrow, or they didn't come in 3 weeks. I was never what I'd call a networking person. I was a relational person. What's the difference? The difference I always felt was at times people would go network and they really weren't interested in the person in the room. They were interested in an outcome that benefits them. What I came to appreciate both on the personal side and the professional side, people started either seeking me out for things or developing a skill set from that I didn't know I had by promoting me. So I would be in the Bay Area, for instance, and I would be transferred to Salt Lake as a general manager, or I'd be transferred to Chicago, or then somebody said, hey, we'd like you to go to London. It's those kind. But I didn't know, like when I was at Penn State my senior year, going, oh, well, when I'm in my 30s, I'll be going to London. Yeah. I didn't even know I'd be a sales manager. Yeah. I didn't even know what my job would be. But I always thought I'll be in transactions and I'll be serving and participating in our church somewhere. Those were two things I did know.
I think that's really interesting. That kind of goes to our point on like trusting your gut and intuition. But also going back to what you said, it reminds me of a quote that my sister told me that like 3 years ago today, I am exactly where I wished, or like everything that I wanted or wished has happened. But if you ask me like for the beginning of this year, like everything is just like pending slowly.
I guess like to kind of give our audience more insight on Dave, how would you describe what you do today or what you've done in your career?
I shared with you earlier, and this is really a little bizarre in some respects, but I became a lot more aware, I should say, when I ended up going to funerals because when you go to a funeral, I mean, it's incredibly sad.
Yeah.
But in later years, and I think this is probably in my 50s or so, I became more aware, one, I wasn't going to live forever. And two, what did people actually say about people? They never talked about size of their home, their title, the car they drove. I mean, if anything, we laughed about certain things like that. And, and that is humorous, but it wasn't to celebrate what they did. But that there's got to be something more relational building with people that I want to spend time with, trying to make a difference in other people's lives. And because you get to a point where your calendar is filled. I mean, you guys fill your calendar because you have responsibilities, professional responsibilities. Mine gets filled because of what I want to do, because there's multiple things that interest me that I go, that's pretty cool. I'd like to explore that a little bit more. So coming down, here's a good example.
Yeah.
I mean, what am I really doing coming down here? I'm retired. I mean, I'm playing that out, but people go, no, I'm retired. I don't do those things anymore. And yet here I am hanging out.
We're teaching the youth.
And having the most fun. But it's fun. It's not like I'm putting you on my calendar going, oh, I got to come down the night before.
Yeah.
Can we do it by, some other way? You know what I mean? But it's fun.
I know you mentioned that you recently retired 3 years ago. And so you work with your son, Greg. The main topic and theme of this episode that we wanted to really dive into is change and evolving as people and through our journey. How was that shift from working every day and you being the main person that gave, I guess, all feedback and commands, and then shifting out of that?
Greg has taken over and he's leading the charge now.
That's amazing.
And we were just talking this morning. He said, hey, because I always wanted to retire while I was still alive.
Yeah.
Too often dads can stay too long. And the fun part, and they don't let go. And that's some of the things I talk to people about, that they don't realize their children have gone from being 10 to being 45. I thought, I want to still be alive so Greg can call me and say, hey, can I pass something by you? And we still do that. And it's one of the most rewarding things. But he has his own team. He's doing what, in this next project, he's doing a great job with it. I think just because I'm a major shareholder does not mean I have to act like a major player who doesn't know how to release himself from what he said he retired from.
Yeah, totally.
Give that team a chance.
We just find it really fascinating that you were able to sustain a family relationship and then also have a business relationship.
So I know I've covered a number of subjects, but again, when you get a little bit older, you're always intrigued by what the next generation and under them is experiencing. So where are you guys impacted at this point in time in terms of just take it personally? You're in your 20s. Yeah. What are you trying to figure out?
I mean, we're obviously still so young. I think at the ripe age of 23, I've had a couple identity crises myself. Just to give you background on myself, I started creating content online about 5 years ago. And I started actually in high school. So I was in my senior year of high school, and I just was a natural consumer of it. I grew up online on the digital space, and I always dreamt of having a platform or creatively expressing myself in whatever way. So I started in my senior year of high school, and I started by making really lighthearted videos on a medium called YouTube. There's a website called Omegle, and it's basically an auto-generating website that matches you with someone else who is online. So it's kind of you get auto-generated on a FaceTime call with a random person who's also online. So I would make videos where I would go on that website and interact with people. and they were always silly. And I remember when I first had started YouTube, part of it, a really big part of it, was because I like creatively really just wanted to like find a way to express myself. I wanted to make my own videos, edit them. So part of it was creatively, and then another part of it was also me trying to figure out like how can I like kind of hustle and make money, because I grew up single mom, middle class family. So I really was like, I was about to graduate high school and I didn't know how I was going to pay for my college tuition. And my mom was like, we could take out loans. And I was like, I don't want to be in debt like that. Like I've like, you know, I kind of knew that that was going to be my path. Unless I like, you know, took action and tried to figure out another way, whether it was just, you know, starting to work on my own. So I kind of got creative with it. And I was like, how can I like monetize this thing that I'm like doing creatively that I like really enjoy and I'm passionate about? How can this also like support me? So I did that for a while. When I graduated high school, I was like pursuing YouTube. And then a year and a half ago, I felt like I really hit a block. One, I was dealing with depression. My family, I have a history of depression in my family. So I was dealing with that. I remember my mindset completely changing from what it originally was. It originally came from a place of like passion and excitement, and curiosity. And then it changed to being obsessed with numbers, entirely basing my worth on if it would perform well. So if the numbers weren't right, I'm like, I'm a failure. In a weird way, I felt trapped. I felt like I was playing this character that I didn't want to play anymore. And that I felt like, where's the growth? I felt like the growth was limited. But there's this quote that Jim Carrey said that was along the lines of, depression is your body telling you that it doesn't want to play this character anymore. It doesn't want to play this role that you're playing anymore. And I felt that like was exactly what I was dealing with. I was so afraid of change because I was like, this is what's working. This is what people know me for. This is what people signed up for. And so I was so afraid of change. And I think once I had like hit rock bottom and my self-worth and my self-esteem was like in the gutter, I had to really just look inward. There was like really nothing else that I could do outwardly. I was so desperately trying to like grasp onto things that I was like, I've tried and it's not working. So it's time to like look inside. That's when I was like, okay, I'm going to go after things that make me passionate, that excite me, that fuel that like curiosity that I initially had, that creativity that I initially had. I felt like I wasn't really impacting people. I felt like I wanted to make a change in however, like whatever way that I could with the platform that I had. I felt like I have this great platform that I've built when I was 17. How can I use this to help just one person? And now we're here today. It's like completely different. I used to like reach hundreds of thousands of people and it wasn't enough. And now it's like, if it's just one person, it's so fulfilling. When the content changed, also how I viewed myself also started to change. I was like, I have something to offer. I have something to give to people. Embracing change saved my life overall.
So what's your story?
My story, well, like I said, I don't know how I got here. I feel like growing up, I was just a super shy kid. And I was just like, I grew up in a big family. Like, you know, Kaden, we have two other siblings. I have an older sister and a younger sister. And I have a family that just has, it's a bunch of big personalities. Just growing up, I felt like I was never seen or like heard or like listened to. I guess that's a question like I've been asking myself daily is like, how do I break out of like this persona? How do I see myself? How can I just like try something new? I had no idea I would help Nailea produce this podcast, but I knew that from the beginning, like ever since I was in high school, people would ask me like what I wanted to do, and I was like, I want to own my own business, but I didn't know what that meant. I kept trying to find ways that I can just find like a meaning for someone's life, or like find a purpose for what I'm doing. So
When did you feel yourself grow out of the shyness? Have you grown out of it, or do you still deal with it sometimes?
I feel like once in a while that little girl will like pop out and like say like just be quiet, like it's just better to be quiet than to talk, or like just like a little whisper in my ear. I kind of have to remind myself like I'm not that person anymore.
The themes that I see in that is like building confidence in self, and then also just trusting your intuition.
When I told you about my sales career where I said, on Mondays I'd see the numbers and it resets to zero. That was a very digital process. The problem or challenge or opportunity is that in your season, you are dealing with an analog scorecard. You're not dealing with a digital scorecard. So you don't know where you are. So the mirror's always here.
Yeah.
And your challenge is, can you move it out to here or move it out to here and move it out to here and celebrate the victories? And I don't mean celebrate it like in a, kind of go have a glass of wine and celebrate, but to really look at where I've been.
Yeah.
And I think our challenge is, even though I can rip off the label and it's going this way, mentally I still think, oh, it's back again. And I'm sitting there going, what label are you guys talking about? I don't see a label at all. And I want to be careful again. I don't mean to pass judgment, but the generation feels these stickers on them. Yeah. And they keep fighting how to rip the stickers off when in fact the stickers aren't there. But it's the perception that they're there.
The beliefs that you hold about yourself will limit you or will push you forward. Would you consider yourself to be a very intuitive person?
I think at this point, I've got a pretty good sense of maybe what I'm stepping into.
Over the span of your career, like, did you have moments where you wanted to make a decision and you had no backing other than the fact that you knew you wanted to make that decision?
Yeah, and I can remember I just said, screw it, I'm not going to do it then. And it took me 6 months to get over it, and then I went back and did it. I am still a work in process. That no matter what it might sound like, if you're leading, and I'm leading in a number of areas, like you guys are leading, like your listeners are leading in their own ways, it's a constant work in process. It's not like I've arrived. And so the things that I'm talking to you about are variations of what I still deal with today. Celebrate where you are, because you're never going to get out of it.
It's like, don't look at the end result. Just have fun during the journey.
And it's so much to have fun around.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at what you do and I'm thinking, this is so much fun.
Aww.
Dave, we know you have a little book of wisdom.
You told us off camera that like you've been collecting these one-liners throughout your business career.
I'll give you an example. So I picked off a couple that I've used, or not used, but have meant something to me. And that was, it will take time for significant outcomes to be revealed. So think about that one. So you look at what you're doing right now, significant outcomes, but it will take time for it to be revealed. One also that stayed with me was make difficult decisions your first action of the day.
Oh.
That's sometimes hard though.
It is hard.
Really hard actually, because
Yes.
especially just like first thing looking at your phone if you're a manager, like,
Yes.
and it's something crazy, then like what do you do?
By not dealing with it, it took a disproportionate amount of time out of my day thinking about it.
Oh, so you're just like, get it out of the way.
Start the conversation early in the day and get the content out within 2 minutes of the beginning of the conversation. The one that, again, your reputation is worth more than the transaction. Be honest in what you communicate. If you can't make June 5th, don't make it sound like you're going to make June 5th. If you're going to deliver a certain outcome to something that you said you're going to do, if it's a report or whatever, and you say, I'll be there on the 5th, and you can't do it on the 5th, don't tell them you're going to do it on the 5th. Because what I found over the years was, if you're going to have the team you need to know that they're going to perform. And they're going to perform within certain parameters of how you need them to perform as outlined. But the one important is, when do you think you'll have it done? Sometimes people say, oh, I can do it by June 5th just to impress the person. So they're, impressed with you. But then it's June 9th. Start out by saying, hey, I've got a really tight schedule. Can I do it June 9th?
Don't overbook yourself, and whatever is realistic, stick to it.
Yeah, stick to it. But the one that we talked earlier about, don't measure your success by your title, bank account, or GPA. That's for high schoolers. Measure it by the difference you make in other people's lives.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that what we've been talking about?
I remember when we were talking, you said, how do you measure the success of what you're doing? You were asking us about our show, and you were like, do you measure it by the amount of views that you get? Do you measure it by the amount of money that you're making off of it? Or is it the people that you've impacted? And that really stayed with me.
You will always lose an employee, job, or romance. Understand why and learn from the experience. Allow time for the wounds to heal. Because those kind of things, whether it's an employee, whether it's a job, or it's a relationship, it's painful. And accept the fact that it's not going to be fixed tomorrow, but let it heal and work at healing it and learn how to heal it, because you're going to be dealing with this through your whole life journey, whether it's the personal side or the professional side. So those were just ones that are not directed specifically to you, but it's my story. When you guys kind of say, well, how did you become who you are? It's because of these things that I started capturing and thinking, yeah, that's probably who I am, because I have stories on every one of those things I just shared. I am not above any of those, and I can articulate all of them.
Over time, like, we change as people, and we see the people around us change too. Not that many people have the privilege to even like have strong, healthy relationships with their family. What's some advice that you would give to just show how to like have a long-term healthy relationship?
I'm thinking of them because at times they're like 76, 74, 72, and 70. And when we get together, it's kind of like we're 8, 10, 12, and 14 again. It's so funny how that works. I think that my parents built a strong foundation of being involved in our lives. They were always around. They attended our events. I think that the takeaway is you've got to invest. Significant people, you need to invest significant time in their lives. But it all starts in 10s and 20s and 30s. And when it goes sideways, I mean, I remember a conversation with somebody who was so upset with her brother. And I said, well, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. Yeah, but eventually, and I said, eventually he's going to die. What are you going to do at his funeral? I've already decided I'm not going.
Dang.
Yeah, so that's
harsh.
what I'm saying. It goes back in time and it gets projected into the future, and people have plans already.
People are just scared to be vulnerable, men and women.
You say vulnerability is important in leadership. How so?
Well, you're not always right. And sometimes in leadership, being vulnerable around leadership basically says, that's a pretty good idea. Let's go with it. Versus that's not my idea. So I'm not going to go with it. And you always feel that you have to be somewhat the king or queen at the table. And I've said, surround yourself with people better than you are and trust the process.
That goes to our idea on like mentorship. How do you pick a good mentor? Because you also mentioned to us like
Someone you admire, someone you trust, someone that, yeah, you can trust with like your life and life advice.
A good mentor in your life is somebody who you feel vulnerable with. And I've often said, your relationship with someone by, if you had to rank the things you share 1 to 10, one might be, what did you think of the Lakers? And 10 might be, I was just diagnosed with cancer. Well, your really strong mentor is one that gets down to like 8, 9, or 10. Because that's where you're most vulnerable and you trust that process. But it's hard to get there because there's not a lot of people who fall into those categories. They're aware of it, but they don't know how to find that type person.
the idea of a mentor kind of seems so out of reach, and it seems like you have to pay so much for a mentor, and a lot of people don't have that kind of money for that. But really, you can find a mentor anywhere. And I feel like even I've found cases where like I have had people give me inspirational advice, and I'm like, whoa, this is pretty cool. Like one time when I was going to pick up Caden, actually, before he broke his ankle, I was gonna fly to him, but then I was like, let me see if there's a cheaper way to do this, because flights were like crazy last minute. So I found a bus ticket for like $50 to go from LA to San Jose. So I hopped on the bus, and the bus was fully packed. The only seat left was next to one guy, and as I was like walking towards the end of the bus, I see him wearing like this orange full fit scarf wrapped around him, and I was like, I think he's a monk. Throughout the conversation, I was just like asking him about meditation and stuff. I think through my tone, he could tell like I was going through something, because like I was there, I was on the ride to like go help my brother, because like he broke his ankle. So I don't know where this came from him, but he was just saying like a lotus blooms out of mud. And like that kind of just shows like out of hardships and like hard parts in life, beauty can come out of it. It also just showed me that like even this small interaction that I had, who like this person wasn't really like a long-term mentor to me. The fact that he was able to just like do what he wanted to do in life and just like push. He spoke at Harvard, he was a monk, but like that stuff didn't really matter. I think what really mattered and like stuck out to me was that he stayed true to like what he wanted to do. And that's like kind of qualities that I look for in a mentor.
Yeah. What would you say is a good mentor?
One is somebody who's available.
Okay.
Somebody who will take your call within 24 hours.
Wow.
Because if they're not willing to invest in you, then they're really not a mentor. They're an associate, they're an acquaintance, they're somebody. But a mentor is somebody who's going to say, I'm interested in that, I can invest the time.
I think we're ready for our audience call-in questions. So we have our audience call in and they ask for, well, they just share stories usually.
Hi, Nye. I think one risk at the moment for me would be trying to get my business out there. I'm a newly licensed esthetician, but the idea of like putting my prices out there kind of scares me. Mainly because I feel like people would think that they're too much or that I'm not like that good enough to like have those prices out there, which is why I haven't put anything out there. And that's kind of what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of like failing and then, you know, having all this work basically for nothing.
So, do you have any advice for people who are scared to start?
Well, one is they have to accept that they could fail. Take it off the table. You know, because if you don't accept the fact you could fail, then you'll never get started. And you'll always be second guessing. A little bit of what we were talking about earlier about the labels. Oh, fail is one of them over here. And because I've always felt worst case scenario, take the worst case scenario. And as long as you accept that, then you can move on all the other things. And I give her a lot of credit for how concerned she is on the subject of what she shared. But it also sounds like she's done a lot of work.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I would encourage people to do is to trust the process and adjust accordingly.
Trust the
Whoa,
Yeah.
trust the process and adjust accordingly. That's
Adjust
true.
accordingly, yeah.
But you've got to start, and you've got to start with confidence. If you're concerned with failure, you will never get anywhere of consequence, and you will always wonder why. Why didn't I do this? And again, it's easy, older and all that, which I've made comments on long enough today. But it just stays with you that if you just don't, you'll just so regret things in your life because you didn't have the confidence or the encouragement or whatever term you want to use. And all of a sudden you go, wow, I'm in my 30s. And I still haven't done this.
Look at the people that you admire and respect and that inspire you. They've most likely failed so many times.
That's the thing people don't understand. They don't understand anybody who's of significance has failed. But they just pick themselves up and they don't accept it.
One risk that I would say I'm scared to take is things that I have for my future self planned and dreams that I have. I always have a fear of not taking those risks because I'm worried that I'll never achieve them. And one of my biggest fears is not living the life that I have planned for myself in my head. And I know that I won't be able to live that life if I don't take the risk and go out there. But it's scary, and I'm just scared that I won't succeed and that I'm just going to be in a bottomless pit of failure. And I would say that's it. Thank you.
Risk is an interesting subject because you're always challenged by failure with it. And in my personal life, it sends me back to my 20s, and I don't know how old the caller is, but I was living in Philadelphia. I'd worked for 3 years. I left my job and I had a one-way ticket to Shannon, Ireland. I would go through 15 countries over 5 months, and coming back, I decided to visit some friends I'd met in Europe, and so I took the Greyhound bus to San Francisco. Little did I know that my life would unfold in San Francisco Bay Area, and things that I did not know would happen began happening. One was, did I get a job? And to the caller specifically, I get in my own way, and I can't walk in your shoes, but I get the feeling, and nobody understands it like you do.
I guess I am like a follow-up question is like, when you do fail, how do you pick yourself up?
You pause to understand why.
Hi, Nye. This is Jasmine. One risk that I'm scared to take is letting go of like past versions of myself. I feel like it's hard to let things go when you feel like they've shaped you, but I do feel like I have to let go of that, right? Because then you can never get to where you want to be. Curious to hear how you guys think about that as part of growing up and like growing into the best version of yourself.
That's a great one. I think that's a great point. I feel like I resonate with that heavily because I think I change every year. I think I'm like a new person every year, every day, honestly. Sometimes there's a way to embrace that your body and your mind is telling you that you have different priorities and different interests, and something is pulling you towards a different direction. I'm sharing that from my personal experience. I think when I knew that I was ready to step into a different version of myself, it kind of just was like a body feeling. You know, you don't necessarily know what that's going to look like. But there's a way of stepping into it with curiosity. I also think that there's also a way to look back at the old versions of you and hold them with care and tenderness, because they were still valid. They were still you. So there's a way to like look back on those and those versions of yourself and be like, that was what was true to me then. That's who I was then. It's not who I am now.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean,
I think that was a perfect way to end that segment.
Justus and I took some time and we wrote down our own one-liners.
Yeah.
oh, so you've done those.
You're the inspiration.
This is so much fun.
You do what you do so you can inspire someone who hopefully inspires someone else, and so on.
Oh.
Okay, we got to go to 4. I want to hear about the inspiration. What does that mean exactly? And tell me where it's happened that made you write it down.
I feel like it kind of goes into my idea. I have this idea that like nothing is truly original. I kind of feel like we're all inspired by people and other human beings and other things that have been previously created. So I think you can be inspired by someone, but your interpretation of what they have done is so unique to your experience.
Here's something what I've learned over the, again, years. Okay. I listen to people say really cool things. Yeah. And you know what they end with? I don't know. When I hear somebody go, after something really thoughtful, I don't know. It's like their disclaimer, because they're not quite sure how people are processing what they're saying. And I've said, and there's 2 things. They usually say, I don't know, and something happens to their shoulders. They go like weird on their shoulders, and I'm going, you can't do that anymore. So, and I say you can do it, but those two things, just let it sit there. Okay, that's the only thing. But I mean, that's why when we've talked and I've said the things I've said about the two of you, it's not to blow smoke, but it's your insight to where you are. It's just not celebrating it as often because you don't know what to celebrate it around. But when you talk about that next, I'll call it next generation of sorts, you're already thinking about it. So I'm thinking she's going this way and she's going this way. That's as cool as it gets. Okay, contestant number 2.
Justy.
Not everything can be said, so it's up to you to properly interpret a situation. This is like, I just picked this randomly just now. So.
You didn't even finish the last part. Okay, the full sentence is, not everything can be said, so it's up to you to properly interpret a situation.
The thought that came to mind was if you take today's, say, political discussion, for the most part, somebody says will not, they'll go, wow, I disagree with that. But it's not personal. Whereas, but when it's painful, that's when it can't be said. I mean, this sounds really stupid, but an example would be you go out with friends, who picks up the bill? And one person never picks up the bill. And you go, well, that doesn't work, or that's not fair. And you guys talk about it. And I'm making this up a little bit, but it's a true thing when money's an issue around, who's paying for this? And they go, well, I can't say anything because if I do, then the person's probably not going to like it and they're going to . But if you can't bring it up, then what kind of relationship do you have with the person you're having lunch with?
I really love that quote that you wrote because I feel like it's true. It also comes down to like reading between the lines, how you observe a situation, and like something can happen. You can have an encounter and you're like, okay, someone is being passive aggressive, and you can interpret it as that they didn't like me. It was me. It was because I was being awkward. Or you could interpret it as they were having a bad day and it has nothing to do with me. So it really is how you view things, your perspective, and what you choose a story to be. So as you know, the name of the show is Ease. So this is kind of like a play on the name. Our final question is, how can embracing change give us ease?
Not be threatened by it and celebrate it. Because if you don't celebrate it and you look at it as a chore, which will create a different response, things will pass you by, and they will have passed you by before you realize it, and you'll be behind in areas that you could have been in front of, but you did not risk that opportunity. So you're going to miss the ease of your transition that you celebrate. And it's something that is a lot of what we've talked about today. And I didn't even make that connection until you just asked that question, because I was wondering where it's going. But that's your platform, that question. That is the platform, because that's where people are now. But nothing of consequence happens without work and commitment and a lot of the words we've used today. But boy, when it happens, it's the coolest thing. Again, I celebrate that question and keep building upon that as people can learn from that question.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. You definitely have left an impact on us. So I'm sure that our audience will feel the same way.